I do think though that the more I have conversations with people where I would assume that they would have a visceral reaction to everything would say that don't. I feel like just the extremes on both sides of the left and the right. I feel like it's such a small pool, but because they're the loudest, they are like almost the brand ambassadors for that side, and everyone thinks that they represent what the other side is. And I think uh, when it comes down to it, I think everyone wants a decent interaction with everybody, and everyone's wanting to put the weapons down, but they just don't know, are you really going to drop your weapon though
Mm.
and not pick it up? And I think that's why we carry around the weapon, because we have a paranoia. Are you going to use it on me? I won't use it on you, but I need it just in case you do. But I think everyone's exhausted. I think
Really?
everyone wants, I think most people are. The more I talk and interact with people, and I say this in the sense of I'll talk to someone that figuratively has the weapon like ready to swing. And the more we talk, the more they just are like, whew, they don't want to hold it. Like it's heavy. That's my, and I can't say like my anecdotal interactions are like, that's just everyone. But when I encounter people who I would find teeter being extremists, on the left or right, and I see how they're only being this way or holding these weapons because they assume the other side wants revenge, or they assume an overwhelming amount of people on that side wants to get them, when
Hmm.
really that there are people that do, but majority of people, I don't feel like they do.
That is okay. So you've now surprised me quite a bit here. I think maybe similarly to my surprising you with respect to what gets said when a black person leaves the room. But my sense is that I feel like I'm watching a revolution in which every institution that I know of is being transformed and they're adopting not only beliefs but policy that I know just can't be made to work, right? Just simply will not work. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
result in all of these institutions falling apart and failing to do what they need to do, which in some cases will be very sad and in other cases will be a catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
But um, the idea that most of the people who are part of the movement that is driving this might be exhausted and interested in putting their weapons down. I don't know. I don't know how that deal gets brokered, but wow, would it be smart for us to figure it out because you know this is going to be a short ride. If this
Yeah.
revolution wins, it's going to destroy the stuff that makes us strong, and then it doesn't matter how the pie gets divided. It's not going to be much pie, you know?
Yeah. And I do want to be clear. I guess I don't know if I heard the full question of what you asked. Definitely different between interpersonal relationships or conversation happening with me and like institutions and universities. Like that's a different story. And I feel like these kids are just echo chambers of what their professors are saying, and they don't even know what they believe. But um yes, I do think though, even them there, they might just feel like this is the way I show that I'm a part of this movement and that I want change. And but there's been so many people who have walked away from being a liberal because they're just like, one, they see that as counterproductive and the whole ideology backfires on itself, and they say it was exhausting to go into every single room all the time and having to like detect if is this racist, is this sexist, is this like they were like oftentimes I was actually creating it in my head and it wasn't there at all.
Hmm.
um and then you can look on the other side, And I'll just use this man as an example. Daryl Davis, you know, befriending Ku Klux Klanners, not just people that voted for someone that people might not like, Ku Klux Klanners who say they hate people who look just like him, where his friendship has, um, allowed them, I guess, in a way, to 200 to 300 of them to leave willingly. Not that he said, you know, if we're friends, you can't be in this. No, he would go there because he knew what he was doing. And he knew it was kind of like a strategic move of love on his part. And that's what I mean, the weapons. Like, people don't, at the end of the day, those men, when I listened to the podcast and I actually saw him in person at NYU, and he was with a former Ku Klux Klanner who talked about how my hate had nothing to do with Black people. It had everything to do with the fact I hated myself. And he said the majority of people in these movements, Ku Klux Klanners, are usually boys that don't have a father figure, who's looking for community, who is looking for a place of love. He's like, it's almost in the same contrast as maybe an inner city kid looking for love with a gang. He said it's just like we're looking for something, and instead of doing internal work on ourselves, we project it on something, and that's easy to project it on Black people. And if I have to do that to have kinship with these people, I'm going to do that. And so when you hear these stories time and time again on other sides, for me, I've come to the conclusion people are exhausted, but they just don't trust the other side, and don't want to be vulnerable for the other side. But who goes first is the question.
Well, so interestingly, Daryl Davis is an example. If I think back, I have heard many, many conversations about him in many different racial contexts. I've never heard anyone say anything negative, right? Everybody likes this story, right? And it's a surprising, interesting, wonderful story. And it does say all kinds of things. I understand the impulse to do what he did. I have that same impulse. I would not have thought it would work at the level that he made it work. It's a marvelous testament to his insight into the situation and his courage to do it, because the instinct to do it is one thing. The actually taking the risk of doing it is quite another. But in any case, I think, again, I'm still a little bit surprised by your sense that, at least interpersonally, people are interested in escaping this dynamic, right? I see it accelerating, but if people really wanted it to be stood down, that would be very, very healthy. Now, as for, I think you're pointing to exactly the obstacle that will prevent it from happening, which is somebody has to go first. And at this moment, that's a very vulnerable thing to do on either side. But, there's got to be a way. And, I increasingly think it's probably going to have to do with modeling difficult conversations so that people understand what that would look like. In other words, if we could illustrate the standing down of the tension between individuals where the tension existed, then there's a lot of room for other people to follow suit.
100%. And that's why I do engage in conversations with people. One, the first public person that I think was kind of well known, Benjamin Boyce. I had a conversation with him in September after my article came out in Tablet magazine, Free Black Thought. And one, I had the conversation because I think it was needed at that time. And two, I knew his base would not ever search for me. They would not know my name. Even if people over here might know me, I might not be in their algorithm ever. And I felt like I was not walking to the lion's den, but I was talking about Black Lives Matter, and I know how his base feels about it, but I felt like if I can humanize this in a way where the weapons are down in this conversation with Benjamin, and we're having an organic conversation, authentic, and they can see into why someone would do a BLM. What's the purpose? Why would they want to be on this mission, and just humanize their sentiments. I was like, it's worth a shot, and I was shocked by the reception. And it was funny because a lot of the comments, and then people would come on my channel and give comments and become subscribers, and it wasn't because they agreed with me at all. I mean, they made it very clear. I don't agree with BLM. I don't agree with the fact that you were willing to have this conversation and that you're willing to listen, and that I actually did gain some knowledge into something I never would have considered. That was a win. I was like, this is okay. This is what I'm going to continue to do. And I've gotten a lot of comments now with my channel where people are speaking up. And I'm not going to say it's hundreds, but I've gotten at least 15 comments from white, black men and women, and Hispanic and Asian people talking about, I have to do this diversity training or this inclusion training. And what I told people is I encourage you to participate and raise the issues while you're doing it in good faith. Like, don't just be like, I don't want to do this, but raise it when you're doing it so they see that you're actually trying and that you're now questioning, like, well, this actually, I see a flaw here. Like, can we discuss it? Like, discuss it when you're there with them. Because they're not going to hear it if you are just, But and then there's a lot of people who are like, these are the thoughts I've had. A lot of black people, they're like, this is the thoughts I've had. They're like, I agree with the sentiment of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. But I also have these issues, and now I'm voicing them. Like, stuff like that is enough for me. And then also with white people saying they're willing to be more open to hearing other people's point of view, and voicing their own point of view, and feeling like, okay, now I know how to actually shape my conversation where someone's not thinking I'm trying to attack them. Like, that's enough. And I think that is what more people need to do, but it's not easy at all.
Well, it's being made more difficult because you mentioned Benjamin. I don't know if you know, Benjamin's a good friend of mine. But he is portrayed, as I am actually, as being somehow on the right, and sometimes they're even portrayed as far right or alt-right, and there is actually zero to it. It's just simply not accurate. And so the problem with that is, on the one hand, yes, it's very annoying to be dismissed and portrayed this way. But the worst effect, and I think the reason that it happens, is because there is a desire to keep the very people who need to hear it from hearing it. So if you are on the left trying to figure out what to make of things at the moment, then you're very unlikely to end up going to listen to a channel that you've heard is far right, alt-right, whatever, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the point is, that stigma means that the number of people who saw your interaction was less than it might have been. And that means that it can't do as much good as it needs to do, which, frankly, if you take people like you or Benjamin and you put them in these conversations, of course it will do good, right? These are model individuals who are capable of having a model conversation. The problems aren't zero, but they're solvable. And the way to solve them is for people who don't know the details of what's on the other side of the conversation to discover it together, and for the audience to come along. So, I don't know what percentage of the problem has to do with people being driven away from channels that are the ones they most need to hear, but I think it's significant.